Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 903 of the Juicebox Podcast. Today we'll be speaking with Nico. She is a type 1 and a group expert in my private Facebook group. Nico is here today to tell her story, but most importantly, so that I can find out why she seems to always know what I'm thinking. While you're listening, please remember that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. All right, everybody, listen, I need you on this. Last month, we did not do well on our T1D exchange survey completions. I was not happy with the number. T1dexchange.org/juicebox. Join the registry, complete the survey, 10 minutes. All you have to be is a type 1 who's a U.S. resident or a U.S. resident who is the caregiver of a type 1. These questions are simple. You can do it from your phone while you're seated on a stool, perhaps. 10 minutes to help people with type 1 diabetes and to move diabetes research forward. That's all I'm asking. T1dexchange.org/juicebox. Please, in your mind, say, I'm going to do that, and then do it. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by the Contour NEXTGEN blood glucose meter. Learn more and get started today at contournext.com/juicebox. Contour NEXTGEN, actually all the Contour meters are amazingly easy to use. They fit well in your hand, have bright lights, easy to read screens, and they're super duper accurate. contournext.com/juicebox. The podcast is also sponsored by Touched by Type 1. Beautiful organization helping people with type 1 diabetes. All they want is for you to follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and check out their webpage, touchedbytype1.org. I will be at their local event. I'm not supposed to say when yet, but it's this year. Going to do a lot of speaking there that day. Nice event. A nice event is an understatement. They put on a beautiful event. You should check it out. touchedbytype1.org.
I'm Nico. I am a type 1 diabetic, but I only found that out maybe in the last 6 months for sure. And I have 2 giant dogs who may bark once while we're recording. And I am not an open book, but I probably am if you ask the right question in the right way.
Okay, well then that puts the pressure on me. That's fine. Nico, how old are you?
Oh gosh. Oh, so it's time for some Scott math. I think I'm 45. I'll be 46 this year.
You think you're 45?
Uh-huh. So this year ends in 3 and the year I was born ends in 7, but I didn't have my birthday yet this year. So I'm 45.
Oh, okay. You're 45. That's perfect. And you were just diagnosed in the last 6 months with type 1, but you were what were you, misdiagnosed as a type 2 prior or something?
So thanks to the podcast, I tried to sign up for the Radiant study and they found my antibodies. And so I am officially a type 1 now. But prior to that, so I went 6 years, 14 years ago as a type 2. I was on oral meds and an extremely strict diet. We could talk about my diagnosis story for about an hour and a half at least, but it's really not that interesting. And then after 6 years, my A1Cs were creeping up and my plate was getting smaller and smaller with only green things and meat on it. And finally, they looked at me and said, "You're not making enough insulin." And I said, "Thank you. I'm going to go eat a hamburger now." And so that will be 8 years this March that I've been on insulin.
Okay.
But at that time, they just said I was treated as a type 1, but I wasn't diagnosed type 1.
Okay. Can you move the microphone about a half an inch away from your mouth?
I don't know.
Is it on a headset, the mic?
Yeah, I can move it up. I had moved it away from my nose, but I'll move it closer to it.
Yeah, I think you're when you're breathing out with your mouth, it's hitting it. That's all.
Are you calling me a mouth breather?
No, not at all.
I'm just teasing.
I mean, not yet. Sorry. Maybe an hour from now I will be. I have no idea. I haven't met you yet. So
perhaps. Okay.
So you lived for 6 years as type 2, and then were you getting insulin at that time or no?
No, I was initially on metformin, and when the metformin wasn't cutting it, they added Januvia. So then I was on Genumet. And then I didn't even remember, but near the end, I was also on something called Prandon. And I wasn't treated like other type 2s I've heard on the podcast. I actually had great education. It just didn't apply to me, obviously.
Right.
And they kept telling me, do all these things right and you'll avoid insulin, the big, bad, scary thing. And oh my gosh, I wish I had been on insulin so much sooner because we just kept reducing. I tried everything they said and took away essentially every carb, every grain. And I literally was eating leafy greens and meat and couldn't stay under 200 because my body wasn't making insulin.
Yeah. Did you lose a lot of weight during that time?
So initially I did. And that's the other piece of my story that may be a little different than others. I weighed 97 pounds when it first started.
Wow.
And you wouldn't think that they would have assumed type 2, but I live in a community where everyone is type 2. And it's an underserved community. I drive 2 hours now to an endo. And I had no idea, juvenile diabetes, of course. So I just believed them. And I went to the classes and I tried harder and harder and harder. And obviously felt like I was failing. Yeah. And it was actually the complications that developed, even though my A1Cs weren't terrible. And you've asked in the group, is anyone the star group in your practice? I was a star pupil for all of my doctors. They loved my A1Cs. I've had 3 in the 7.1 to 7.4 range in my entire career as a diabetic. And the others were mostly in the 6s with a few in the 5s prior to the podcast. But
how much weight did you lose off of 97 pounds?
So initially, so now I'm pretty close to 120. I've gained a little recently. We've been working on that because of my gastroparesis. They kind of want me to keep a little on, but I probably should sit around 114. Okay. So 17 pounds probably.
Wow.
And my family was really concerned. They had me weighing in with a psychiatrist. I mean, I was, what did we ever figure that out? About 30-ish when this started.
Right.
And I went a really interesting path. I thought I was crazy. Yeah. And so I did see a psychiatrist, and that's where we started. My journey was with psychiatry because mentally I just didn't feel like myself, but I couldn't figure out what was wrong. I was short-tempered and moody and, anyway. But I asked the doctors for help, and they started seeing elevated A1Cs, and we followed that path, but it just took a long time to get to the right path.
Is that disappointing to you?
Extremely.
Yeah.
Gosh. Insulin's not that scary anymore. I mean, even when I first got it, I probably didn't know enough to be that scared. I was just so relieved. I was so hungry. I did put on weight on the oral meds and the diet that I was on. And I almost feel like the gastroparesis may have contributed to that over time because we don't know why I have gastroparesis. Obviously, I'm diabetic, so they're going to say that's what it's from. But it developed around the same time that the diabetes came. And with the food just sitting in my stomach all the time and them telling me eat more high fiber foods because they digest more slowly and they have lower impact. I kept trying really, really hard, plates and plates full of vegetables, and it hurt so much and just sat in my stomach for so long that I think my body just kind of, I don't know. I did get up to about 135 for a while. And so when I finally met an endocrinologist for her to look at me and say, okay, I have a type 2. I'd been treated for probably 4 years before I met her. And she really, I guess, had no reason to question my diagnosis at that point because I did weigh significantly more and I had been treated by other professionals for a long time. But eventually there was a really cool person in her office. Her Jenny sat down with me, and she always loved my food logs and always wanted to know recipes and loved the things I was eating and wished all of her patients ate like me. And then just looked at how frustrated I was that I wasn't succeeding. And first she said, you need insulin. And then one day she listened to me say, food hurts me. And she said, oh my gosh, you have gastroparesis. And I had never found anyone else who had, I had an idea, but what I always would tell my husband at night is that it felt like I ate rocks. And I actually got to them through physical therapy, which referred me to podiatry, and that referred me to endocrinology. So it really was the gastroparesis that eventually got me on insulin.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I can see why you were confused by it.
Sorry.
No,
I'm not going to wait.
Don't worry. I'll talk once in a while. I can see why you were confused by it.
It was tough. Yeah. And then they gave me the gastroparesis diet when and I looked at that and said, but you guys have told me to eat, high fiber foods and colorful things and, whatever. Anyway, and so I looked at that list and said, I can't do this. There's nothing on this list that I'm allowed to eat. But I hadn't found the podcast yet, and I didn't really know how to use insulin very well yet. And I was probably still honeymooning. I seem to have had an excessively long honeymoon. It wasn't a scary honeymoon like some of the children have. No random inputs, but my body did seem to help with hormonal impacts and slower impacts like fat and protein for a really long time.
Okay.
And then it became more real. And now it's extra fun with the gastroparesis and trying to be bold. And now I appear to be in perimenopause. And so this is getting really entertaining.
Did you try any of the digestive enzymes when I talked about that?
So I tried them before, and I did try them again after talking to you. And so I don't live near a health food store because I live in the middle of nowhere, literally. But I got the ones off of Amazon that are being used in another person in the group as a substitute for Creon, the prescription ones. Mm-hmm. And I did actually, prior to starting them, get my enzymes tested. And I do make enzymes because we were wondering. And I've always wondered. I had my gallbladder out around the time that I developed diabetes.
Oh.
I didn't ever have stones. It wasn't inflamed or infected. It just stopped squeezing. And it really hurt to eat food. And so something caused a lot of this, I would imagine. We just never found a doctor curious enough or informed enough to find another patient like me to say, we know what this is. But I'm not sure that knowing any of that would really change anything in my future. Enzymes didn't do anything at all.
Didn't help. Yeah.
I've tried a variety.
I'm glad you tried something. Does food still hurt when you eat?
If I stick to, I have some safe foods. I have quite a few safe foods these days. Foods that are healthy and colorful, foods that Jenny eats, don't exist in my diet anymore. Mm-hmm. They did, and I really enjoyed that part of the beginning of my journey. I learned a lot more variety of food, and I really ended up liking a lot of vegetables that I had never eaten before. I just learned that vegetables out of a can are just not good, and that if I actually grow them and cook them, they're actually really good.
Yeah.
But they're just not safe for me.
Right. Your body just can't digest them.
Yeah, it's just not squeezing. And I did have a little bit of a trick for a while where I added acidic beverages with my food, and that seemed to really help, but it destroyed my esophagus.
Oh,
and so I kind of have a management issue now but I've figured out a few tricks along the way, and I have added more and more safe foods over time. A lot of them are just really much harder to bolus for, as you would imagine. I can eat pumpkin bread pretty well, but there's a lot of sugar in there and it goes fast. But I need calories. And if the calories I can get are high glycemic index foods, baby food, basically, just one step below baby food, because it does really help if I chew.
Right.
If I chew, that helps a lot. If I don't chew, if I drink smoothies and things, it just, I don't know, feels like it's just plugging the bottom of my stomach and not going to ever go anywhere. But if it starts with something that it could be made into baby food and I chew it, that usually works pretty well.
Okay.
So there are a few vegetables on that list. Potatoes work just fine, as long as they're soft. If I could mash them with my fork, pretty much anything that if I can mash it with my fork and feed it to a baby, I can eat it. But I need to chew it before we mash it, and then it usually digests pretty well. So, but I still skip fiber. I skip skins. I skip seeds. I haven't really found many fruits that are safe.
What about animal protein?
Do great with animal protein as long as it's kind of like Instant Pot, crock pot style, roasted, really soft.
Right.
So those tougher, yucky cuts that people don't like that are cheaper, they actually work really great for me because I can just cook them until they're, like I said, really close to being made into baby food, and I chop them up in little bits, chew them up, and that stuff works great. The meat that doesn't work well is ground meat, because I just can't get each little bitty rock chewed well enough to digest it. So
you may have just talked me into making a stew this weekend too. That was interesting the way you just did it. Oh, maybe I'll make stew.
Yeah, we do. I do use the Instant Pot and the crock pot frequently when I don't know, but I do live really far from ingredients.
Well, I need
I learned to care about ingredients a lot in those first 6 years because we were trying anything and everything. The level of care that you went through with Arden to try to troubleshoot some of the thyroid issues and some of the ovary issues and some of those other issues that she was having in high school, we went to that level for me, trying to figure out what was wrong, neurology, all kinds of people. We saw everyone.
Yeah.
And even the GI doctor just said, yeah, this isn't a GI issue. And it was, but I don't know. They're just.
Well, you have a lot of little failures in there, like your gallbladder's gone, your pancreas is sputtering.
Oh,
like there's
yeah. And you may have seen probably around the time we scheduled me to be on the podcast. I also don't have a uterus, so that makes me really fun, because the random inputs from my ovaries are still there. They've been there, but my uterus came out before I was diabetic, and so I don't actually have the one clue that says exactly what the uterus is doing.
I have to tell you,
ovaries are doing. Sorry.
I just stopped myself from laughing because you said I don't have a uterus, which makes me fun, and I thought that's not what she means, Scott. Don't laugh. And I was like,
oh, yeah, I wasn't married yet either, so yeah, it does make me fun.
Now, why did you lose it?
So if I had Ovasitol back in whatever year that was, almost 20 years ago now, then maybe I would be telling a different story, but I couldn't stop bleeding.
Did you have endometriosis or PCOS, or did they not say?
They never found anything wrong. They took the uterus out and never found anything wrong. And I tried. So the only thing that finally stopped the bleeding was, I think it's called Depo-Provera. It's used in prostate cancer treatment.
Okay.
And it basically puts a person into chemical menopause. And that finally stopped the bleeding.
Wow.
I was so severely anemic, and they did the same thing they did to you when you were anemic. They made me go to oncology, like heme-oncology stuff.
Yeah.
And they're like, you're making blood, you're just obviously losing it. And I was like, yeah, we've proven that part. Like, I know I'm losing it.
Right.
I just need to figure out how to get my body to retain it. And it kind of the similar with like Arden's nosebleeds. I never had nosebleeds, but it seemed like the more anemic I got, the more my body malfunctioned and lost more blood.
Sure. No, that I believe for sure. Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
I actually have on my short list to take Arden to an ENT because
fun.
I want somebody to look in her nose and see if they can see where the bleeding's coming from right there.
Oh, poor thing. Yeah. We tried, but pre-internet, all that stuff. And again, doctors 2 hours away. And so a lot of bleeding in the car to get to the doctors, and a lot of bleeding while having blood drawn, lots and lots and lots of vials of blood. And a lot of different birth control pills with the same things Arden went through. Wait 3 weeks, 3 months, wait however long you have to wait for us to prove that you failed this one.
Yeah.
And eventually I just said, this organ you guys are trying to protect, like, I don't think I need it. I don't think I'm going to live without it. I think it needs to go. So after a year of bleeding, they finally took it out.
Wow. You live like basically where they filmed Tremors, right? Like
maybe.
Like that kind of vibe. Like,
I think so, yeah.
Are you in the desert?
I'm in the high desert.
Okay.
It's currently snowing, so I've been shoveling snow this morning. I've been shoveling snow every morning this week except yesterday.
But you're not going anywhere.
You don't want to live here?
Why are you shoveling snow? You're not leaving, are you?
No, we walk our dogs every morning, and we have a nice north-facing driveway. So if we walk the dogs on the driveway, we will never get the snow off of it.
I see. It'll pack down.
And we have both worked every day this week. I just took this today off to record.
Did you? Thank you.
Yeah.
So wait, you have a full-time job?
I don't have a full-time job. It's becoming a little more. I can tell you that part too. But anyway, I didn't have a job when we scheduled this. And so all I needed to do that, I thought, was walk the dogs. And so I sent my mommy to work for me today.
Well, let me, I mean, I have to pivot because I have a lot of questions for you. And I feel like you're not going to let me talk. So I have to get them in.
I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry. So how do you find the podcast? I want to get you to that so I can ask you my questions.
So I found the podcast. It could be a longer story if you wanted it to be, but it sounds like you have some talking to do. So I found the podcast because I was bored with the Facebook group I was involved in that was not related to diabetes.
Okay.
And because the podcast that I used to listen to left my podcast player and I needed to find something else.
So you just needed something else?
Yeah, I wasn't working. I've been practically homebound for a decade now. And I like to give back. And so if the doctors are going to tell me I need rest, I'm going to try to find something I can do with that rest. And for a long time, what I did was teach people gardening.
Mm-hmm.
And then the gardening group that I was an admin in and that I had participated in, for years, became heavily moderated. I really wish that she understood what you understand about Facebook groups, that newcomers need to be able to ask questions and that we need to have those same seasonal conversations over and over again in order for the group to actually stay relevant.
Yeah, when you get frustrated with new people, that to me says you're tired of having a Facebook group.
It says to me you should have a website that they can just visit if you don't want them to actually have conversations about things. And I was really there to help them all. And, you've probably seen that I'm really willing to answer newbies' questions because I have knowledge that I feel can, improve their lives. So why not?
No, Nico, you're a witch, I think, or something, because the whole.
You're not the first person who said that.
Well, because so you found, how long ago was this when you found the podcast?
I think it was at the end of last January.
Okay, so about a year.
About a year.
Have you heard every episode of the podcast?
I have heard every episode of the podcast.
Okay. So let's go into this for a second for people.
So we could have scheduled this a little bit sooner, but I hadn't heard every episode of the podcast.
No. That doesn't matter. Here's what matters.
No. It mattered to me.
Oh, it mattered. Oh, you wanted to get to it? So you could say that you heard the whole thing.
Well, I just wanted to be done. So
I don't know because I don't have that in my head, but
I know you don't, and I do.
You're like, I had to finish first before we did this. And I'm like, I don't know what that means, but I understand how you feel.
Well, I know there are hundreds of episodes I haven't heard, so I didn't really finish yet, but I had to be caught up.
Wait, so you haven't heard them all?
No, I haven't heard the ones you haven't released yet.
Oh, the ones I haven't. Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I have plenty that haven't been released yet. Plus this one, which now I'm gonna stop myself from putting out as soon as we get done recording it. But so here's the.
Well, if I tell you I have anxiety, does that mean I don't have to wait as long?
Anxious people, don't say that on here. Don't tell too many people. Wow, see, that's what I'm talking about. Hold on a second. I'm gonna go back to that. I'm writing it down. Anxiety statement from Nico. Hold on a second. Okay. So are you okay? Let me start slow.
I'm blushing.
Oh, don't. Just let me get this out. So I start watch this. How long's my Facebook group been going?
Oh, about 6 years, maybe?
No.
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay. So good. You don't know everything. That's good. So the private
No,
Facebook
I don't know
group,
everything. I could tell you pretty quickly.
Yeah, I know you can. I don't know how
It's not that old. It's not that old.
It's like 2 years old, maybe, right?
Oh, well, because the episodes I've been listening to recently have been mentioning that the podcast
Facebook
exists, but
yeah.
I thought they were older than that.
So I might have been pushing people to like a public page at one point.
Yeah.
But I started a private group a couple of years ago.
Well, it's been 4 years.
Has it really?
3.5. All right, sorry.
All right. 3.5, 4 years ago. See how I don't know? That's part of why I'm absolutely fascinated by you. So I start that group, and I've told this before, so I'll say it very quickly. I didn't want to start it. I was prompted by people listening to the podcast. I am not the person who wants to back then I was like, I do not want to moderate a Facebook group. That sounded horrible, but they really wanted it. I started it, and they were right. I was wrong. There's like 33,000 people in it now. It gets between 70 and 110 new posts every day. And I used to be the only one answering questions. And I would just be like, that's this is that, and I would answer them out long form sometimes, like do this, try this, look here, had to go through the whole thing. I'm not a doctor, like that thing. And then
Right.
Eventually the podcast, I was like, why am I not, like, I used to find myself thinking, oh, this is covered in this episode. And one day I'm like, I'm going to start answering people with episodes. And that way, hold on a second. And that way I won't, because I can't type this all out. I just can't, I couldn't keep up with everybody. When it was a couple thousand people and they were all podcast listeners, it was like easy. And then it got to be more and more. And then there's this one day, hold on one second.
Okay.
I'll tell you why in a minute.
Okay.
I'm sorry, my sister-in-law is texting me that she's taking my mom to the ER. So I just want to
no.
find out why. I think I know why. I think she's dehydrated, my mom.
Oh,
But
I know all about that too. I'm so sorry.
no, don't be sorry. We've been working on this for a week or so. It was just the other day. I have to make a note to myself to get back to this story once this happens. I texted my mom lives now near my middle brother, and my younger brother and I are closer in geography. And I texted him the other day and I said, "Yo, man, have you heard from mom?" And he goes, "No." And I said, "I haven't heard from mom in a couple of days. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, my mom and I talk like every 48 hours usually." And I'm like, that seems wrong. So I called my brother who lives near my mom now. And I said, "Hey, is mom okay?" And he goes, "I've been working all week." He's like, my brother works like shift work and everything. And I was like, and I said, he goes, "Why?" And I was like, "I haven't heard from her. And when I call her, she's not answering." And now she lives in an assisted living place. So she's not alone, you know? And, and I'm just like, it's just very strange for mom not to call me. So we started doing basically what you did with your health and what I did with Arden's health. And I just started like asking him questions and going through ideas. And it was interesting how they haven't been around her for very long. They were like, "Oh, like her personality's changing. Like, I don't know, she's just getting crotchety." And I'm like, that doesn't seem right. You know what I mean? Like, so did you say UTI?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what we got to eventually. And so, last night I got my brother back on the phone and I'm like, "Look, mom didn't just go from being who she is to telling a nurse to fuck off. Like that's a big leap for 3 weeks. You know what I mean? Like, I just, the last really long conversation I had with her was 2 weeks ago and she was fine. And now you guys are saying she doesn't have any energy. She's falling asleep everywhere. Like, all this stuff is going on. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. And so you have to stop looking at her. I said, this is going to sound strange, but you have to stop looking at mom like a person your age and start thinking of her as an older person and moreover as a science experiment sometimes. Like, sometimes you just have to look at her and think, why is this happening? You know what I mean? Like, what could be? You
can't take it at face value.
Just can't. And I said, and anything she says to you is going to be a lie. I don't go down to dinner because I don't like the people means I can't make the walk. Right. I don't want to go out on this excursion because it's too cold means I'm afraid I can't get to the bathroom if I'm gone. Like, you have to assume that she's protecting you and her dignity every time she's speaking. You from understanding how she's struggling and her dignity because she doesn't want to get caught in a bad position. I was like, you have to like think about it that way. So, I just texted my sister-in-law back and she didn't answer. So if you don't mind, can we take a break for 1 second? I'm just going to push stop.
Sure.
On this.
I'll grab a sweater.
Okay. I'm going to call her real quick just to see what's going on. Well, before I begin with the ad, I guess I should tell you that my mom is okay. Sorry for that if it made you nervous. Just kind of happened in the moment. She did have a urinary tract infection. She did have to go into the hospital. She was there for a week. She had to go to rehab after that. It was a holy mess, but she's doing great today. I will put this caveat in here. If you have a parent in an assisted facility, you have to pay very close attention to make sure the staff is doing what they are supposed to do. All right, now from that bummer to bum. Anyway. All right, now I'm just going to do a Contour ad, I guess. The Contour Next One and the Contour NEXTGEN blood glucose meters are legit, insane, terrific. contournext.com/juicebox. Why do you need that link? All right, it's a fair question. At that link, you can learn all about the meters. You can see everything else they have. You can find out about the test strip program. You can buy these things online or in a brick and mortar store, and you perhaps will pay less money in cash than you do right now through your insurance. That's a possibility, like a genuine possibility. You should check into it. contournext.com/juicebox. But Scott, you say, it's just a meter. A meter. What's it matter? I got a meter. Well, it matters. Good meter, accurate meter, Big difference from junky meter don't work meter. You deserve a good meter. You need accurate test results. I don't care if you use a CGM or you don't. There's no excuse to be wandering around with a busted up janky meter. Just like 2023, people. contournext.com/juicebox. Stop living like it's 1800 with your blood glucose meter. I know somebody out there. I think it's right. Yeah, okay, let's get a good one, huh? So the recording's back on, just so you know.
Okay.
All right. So I talked to my brother, and my mom is just kind of out of it and like having trouble holding herself up and not answering questions. So they're taking her to the emergency room. But I imagine what we're going to learn is either just dehydration from a medication that they switched her to. My mom asks for a sleeping pill, and I'm wondering if she's not a little loopy from the sleeping pill. And then the third thing is if she has a UTI, then a lot of this makes sense. So
it might.
Yeah. So anyway, they're on their way, and I'll find out in a little bit.
Oh, good.
So to prove that I'm a professional at this, I will now go right back into our conversation and keep going. I'm sorry
about
for
the moment when the podcast group became its own entity of people who aren't all familiar with the podcast.
Yes. And that was the moment, the first time somebody said, I saw somebody in a post say, what's this podcast people are talking about? And you have to imagine it from my perspective. I was like, what the hell? I'm like, this isn't the thing. The podcast is the thing. This is a supporting piece for the podcast. And I really had to think through that as I recognized that the Facebook group had become its own thing, and that it wasn't contingent on the podcast anymore. But there were enough core people in there who listened that the answers that started coming as the questions picked up and got more frequent, so did the answers. And overall, like in stunning fashion, the answers were solid from other people. They weren't like newbies. You know what happens in Facebook when like new people don't realize they're talking to other new people, and then they start giving each other their bad information, like back and forth.
And they don't. And that is why you'll see me sometimes answer relatively quickly and sometimes not with as much detail, but with an episode that says, hey, I've seen a lot of newcomers this week, and I think I see a lot of those little hand waving guys happening. And I see a lot of the outside of the Juicebox diabetic community answers coming quickly this week. So this is the week we want to get more podcast answers out, because some of these people are going to believe that, oh, well, my doctor says this answers.
And that just is how it goes. So to walk you through this more, I kept up with it for as long as I could. Like I would and I'm not smart. Like you would think I'd have a document somewhere with links that were like, if, and they, right. Cause but that's not me. Like, so every time I'm like, oh, you know what? That's this episode. I'll go online and find it and put the link there. And then one day, gosh, it's over a year ago now.
Got Isabel.
What's that?
You got Isabel.
Yes, I got Isabel. That's exactly right. I get this note from this lady who's like, and she basically is offering to help me. And now, Nico, the thing you don't know is that in the past, I've had people offer to help me before, and it's often not gone well, or it's very short-lived. And so I've gotten to that point where I was like, look, I can't go through explaining all this to somebody for 3 weeks from now. They go, I'm sorry, I got really busy. I can't do this anymore. And because everybody has a lot of energy and they think they want to do it, but then it's more work than you think. But Isabel, something about her note was so persuasive that I got on the phone with her, because I was like, I'm not getting involved with this if she's a crackpot. Like, I'm just not, And she was so lovely and intelligent and moreover, felt like she was in my head. Like she knows what I'm doing. Like even when I do little things, she'll send me a text. Did you do that because of this? And I'll be like, yes. How did you know that? She goes, I just thought you might have. And I was like, okay. I'm like, wow, that's fascinating. Like she knows what I'm doing. So then she gets involved and she's helping me in all these little ways. She's putting up links and she's making lists of she's like, you have all these like she's the one who told me. she goes, you have like a compendium of different series in the podcast. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And she's like, no. She's like, they should be put together somewhere in a collection. I'm like, really? Like, okay. I'm like, I gave them all the same title. Is that not enough? And so they all say Bold Beginnings. What am I?
It was so hard. so hard to give them all the same title.
You're damn right it was. And I did it. I acted. I conformed.
Because one of those could have been called Jenny's Butt, and it is not.
And it should have been. How about the other moment when Jenny wouldn't tell us what bra size she wore in the middle of a defining diabetes episode, which should have been, anyway, not the point.
I heard that. Was that yesterday? And I thought, I don't think I'd really want to be, anyway.
Oh, I didn't listen, here's the thing you don't know. I didn't expect her to share that. I just said it for
I'm sure you didn't expect her to. Yeah. And I know there are some of us who would. Like I said, if you ask the right questions, I'll just back myself into a corner and be telling you.
I just start saying things. Well, I have no interest in your
I'm not Jenny.
Size.
Jenny does a great job of, she has the restraint that I don't have.
Yeah. So anyway, so
she's a professional. That's why. Isabel
really helps pull the group into focus. And then one day, I can't pay her. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm like, look, I sent her a note that was basically like, it basically said, listen, if you don't want to date me anymore, you can leave. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be I don't want you to feel like your feet are bound and I've got you in the bed. What movie is that?
I don't know.
Kathy Bates puts James.
Yeah. 50 Shades of Grey.
No, Kathy Bates puts James Caan.
I don't know Kathy Bates and James Bond, but I haven't seen that either.
James Caan, not James Bond.
Oh, James Caan. See, usually you'll say, nobody knows what that is. And I'm like, I'm old enough to know what that is. But now you've lost me.
This is fascinating.
Now I'm too young.
Yeah, this is fascinating because you are like the Dewey Decimal System for the podcast.
For the podcast.
Yeah.
I can do that with pretty much anything, but not movies.
Isn't that interesting? Because I just thought you would it's Misery. It's a Stephen King book made into a movie.
Misery. And yeah, definitely not Stephen King. I mean, I have stayed at the hotel in Estes Park, the Stanley Hotel. Mm-hmm. Is that Stephen King?
I don't know.
I think that's Stephen King.
But
I don't know. Anyway, I don't do horror.
It's a thriller, more of a psychological thriller. Rob Reiner directed.
I don't do any of that stuff.
Very
Nothing
good movie.
Like Dexcom keeps me awake at night, and now that Dexcom's not keeping me awake at night as often, my dogs keep me awake at night, and I don't need any other help not sleeping.
Gotcha. So anyway, so you normally anyway, Isabel says to me
for the podcast, yes.
Isabel doesn't break up with me. She just says, no, I want to help. And I'm like, okay, great. So she gives anytime she can. It's way more than you would expect. And one day I said, I got to get you some help because I started feeling badly about everything she was doing. Because she's telling me, I want to free you up to make the podcast, which she's done. But then I feel like I'm abandoning her doing this other thing. And I said, we have got to get you some help somehow. I said, is there anyone in the group who can do this, who would be interested, who'd be good at it? And she said, Nico would be. And I said, anybody else? And she made a short list for me. And
it was obvious that I was available.
No, I don't think so. That's not it. I know you probably feel that
I
way.
I was available. Like I said, I left another group looking for somewhere else to contribute.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you. So we just basically made like a little offer to a few people and said, look, we'd like to make you a group expert. You do a great job of helping people. And, we love the way you drop in links to the podcast and how you talk. And if you're interested, I'm going to give you this group expert label. But I didn't give you any expectations or really ask you to do anything. I just
how that happened on my end was I logged into Facebook one day and I had a notification that said you've been invited to be a group expert in Juicebox Podcast Type 1 Diabetes. And I said, oh, that's interesting. Okay. And I have been a group expert in a couple of other groups, and I might still be one in a few groups. I don't know. So I didn't receive any personal communication until I heard from Krista, who said, hey, I missed this thing that happened because I wasn't here for a week. And I said, oh, yeah, I don't know. I just accepted. But in the interim, I had been sharing links. I don't want to be the voice in the crowd that doesn't explain where I am coming from. Why would you believe me? You haven't been in my doctor's appointments. You haven't seen my graphs. You don't know my variability. You don't know if what I'm saying has any credence. But if I tell you where I learned it from, then you can decide for yourself if you want to follow that same path or not.
Yeah.
And so when I'm in a sea of Facebook comments, if I learned it somewhere, I'm going to tell you where. And I was doing that in other groups, and I knew to be cautious because I had heard on the podcast that you could get kicked out of other groups if you do that. And eventually I stopped going to other groups because I found the group I wanted to hang out in, and I have a little bit less time to hang out in groups. And so I'm happy where I am. But right around that time, you made one of your posts. They're infrequent, and they're kind of fun, and often happen when I'm not logged in. And by the time I get there, I'm like, whoa, I got to really read this guy. And this is a little book I need to spend some time with. But it said, I thank you for sharing the links to the episodes when there are episodes and I said, wow, okay. Now I really have his permission to be sharing the links to the episodes. So I'll definitely do that.
Yeah.
And if I don't have time to write an answer, I'll say, you're going to tell me you don't have time for this, but go listen to this episode because it'll help you.
Okay. No, I mean, you're fantastic. Like you are as if someone reached into my heart and mind and made you and put you in that Facebook group. I swear. Like the way you handle yourself in there is exactly right for my taste. Like exactly right.
Perfect.
Yeah, no. But here's the thing. You appear to know my life better than I do. And that I don't understand.
I'm so sorry.
No. I love it. I just don't understand it. And that's why you're on. I want to understand it because.
Well, and you said send chocolate. And I said, but the cake pop thing freaked you out. So are you sure you want me to send chocolate? And so I didn't send chocolate, but I mean, I would. I don't live in a place
like
really...
these little references about the show.
I know.
Like I listen to a podcast that I like. I don't know that many details about it. And like you did a thing earlier, right?
Yeah, I know. And I'm not trying to give anyone ideas. I actually am a really my husband used to call one of his coworkers a nervous chihuahua. And then I said, but don't you realize you're married to a nervous chihuahua? And so I do have anxiety. I wasn't trying to give anyone any hints, but I do know that, yeah.
No, you're misunderstanding me. Like
the anxiety piece that I said,
yeah.
And, I didn't say it to trick you. I said it's because it's true. But I wasn't trying to teach anyone any tricks.
No, but
it's just true.
But see, you're talking around it right now. I'm going to explain it. You made a reference. See, now? You said, if I tell you I have anxiety, will my episode come out sooner? That's literally a statement referring to a sentence I spoke in one episode. How do you know that? But I also know
that now we talked about your mom. And so I may not get up for a while because that story may not be one that needs to be out in public yet. So I don't know. I guess we'll see who wins here.
But how do you know that one thing?
The listeners win in the end. I hope they're going to, I hope there's something. And the people in the podcast, they do need to listen, and maybe not all of it because it's gotten big.
No, Nico, they need to listen to all of it. I have ads to serve, but
they need to download them all and they can play them all. No,
even when you're sleeping, you can listen. If you want to put the podcast on for your pets while you're gone during the day, I'd love that. But back to the thing.
Maybe not the early episodes because with Crackers, we don't need any help from Basil.
I know that might confuse him if he heard himself snoring. So early on, I shared with somebody, it takes about 6 months for your episode to come out. And then I said, unless you have anxiety, because then I feel bad about it not coming out while you're anxious about it. And you referenced that. So as such a giveaway, like 20 minutes ago, you were like, oh, maybe I should say I have anxiety. And then
no, but I do.
Well, I know you do, but you were referencing that statement though.
I know. I was.
Yeah. You were
I know.
Nico, I feel like you're fighting me and you're not at the same time. This is fun.
Yeah.
So you respond to people so swiftly with exactly the right episode. I don't know how you do it.
And yet I still can't find one of the ones that I'm looking for, but that's okay.
But how do you do that? Like, what's the whole process? You see a post, somebody asks a question, you think, I knew
this is why I was here. And honestly, it's really not that interesting. You know how you tell people, like, that doesn't make an episode? This doesn't make an episode.
I still want to know. Tell me.
Okay, so the other group I was in, I was learning, but I didn't really feel like I had the authority to give back to that group the way that I had benefited from it. And it didn't feel like my comments really had any credence. So I decided to take the Master Gardener class. And in the Master Gardener class, they taught us how to do research, because it's, I don't know, maybe a 10-week class, 1 day a week. And it's kind of a college level course, but they just can't teach you everything that everyone will ever ask you about gardening. So they teach you how to find information. And so I know how to find information. And for a while I've been, well, you almost made it easier for me this week, and then kind of maybe didn't perfectly pick that. And now I know why Steven's episode came out this week is because you followed through with a couple of things that the two of you discussed. And now people should be visiting the website to try out the new search engine, which is much improved. But I like the one that was there a couple of days ago more than I like the one that's there now.
I did too, but it stopped working.
I see how things are going. Yeah, I see. I
Yep.
understand. It's the reality of life.
Yep.
So if I really want to take the time, I can actually just type it into Google and say whatever I'm looking for with site : www.juiceboxpodcast.com. But a lot of times I just happen to remember, that was covered in a Scott and Jenny, and I have the list of Scott and Jenny.
That's the thing I don't understand, Nico. Right there. How do you remember that? I don't remember, and I had the conversation.
You had the conversation and you had to listen through it again to edit it, but you
Yes.
weren't. You're having you're producing the conversation.
But I can't remember it. Like,
I'm listening to the conversation and I'm retaining it because I'm listening as the patient.
Woman, you have my memories. That's what confuses me.
I do. Well, maybe that's why you don't. I'm sorry.
I know, maybe that is. I don't know. Like it like the other day.
I do live in this like vortexy area. If I understood any of that better, if you take Sedona and I don't know, whatever, all the different mountains around me, maybe I have your memories.
Are you doing mushrooms, Nico? What are you doing up in those mountains?
No, I'm not.
Nothing? Okay.
No, I'm not.
All right. So, because like the other day, somebody asks a question. I'm going to get it a little wrong, but she basically is like, has there ever been an episode with somebody who rides a motorcycle?
Oh, yeah.
And I read that and I thought, no, there hasn't been. And then I went, no, wait. Yes, there has been. I remember talking to this really deep voice, gravelly guy. There definitely was. So now I'm sitting at my desk. I'm editing on this computer and I'm sitting looking at this computer and I'm thinking, there was. How would I know where that is? And I was like, oh, I know what I'll do. Hey, Nico, do we have any episodes with motorcycles? And you respond back and you're like, yeah, here it is. It's this one right here. But then,
that's not how I responded. You ignored my actual response.
Well, no, but I didn't like your actual response referenced me to a point that I couldn't understand. That's how deep you are into my mind. Like, and then you were like, you put up another episode and you're like, Scott talked about riding a motorcycle here. And I'm like, I did? I'm like, I didn't know I ever brought that up, except I assume I would have mentioned it in the episode where the guy was riding. But I didn't remember that. And then you found an extra episode where I talked about it. And I thought, oh my God, I had no idea.
Well, your shoulder injury came from
a motorcycle accident.
Motorcycle accident. Yeah. But you talked more in depth about the actual motorcycle. And there is another one that I didn't share with her where you talked about why that, it was cheaper to ride a motorcycle. So
did I really?
Yeah, you did.
You're fucking freaking me out, Nico.
Uh-oh. Wait. How far are we into this one?
Oh my God, you're freaking me out. Like, I mean, I know that, I don't know if this sounds strange to people or not.
It's a matter of retaining that memory and then tracking it down. And the internet helps me tremendously track down those things.
But you have enough to go after. I didn't have enough to go after when she just said, had someone been on talking about riding a motorcycle? I was like, no, not a, wait
and
a
yet
minute,
the other day, my counselor from middle school came in and saw me sweeping cookie crumbs off the floor and said, didn't you go to college? And I said, well, as a matter of fact, I did. And I like selling cookies. So you can
What's your
go
degree
eat your
in?
cookies. My degree. So my undergrad was psychology and political science.
Undergrad? You have a master's?
I went to graduate school and I got bored around the end of my thesis. Sorry.
Interesting. You're fantastic. Yeah. Hey, listen, I'm going to just ask this in a lovely way. You have any mental illnesses you're not disclosing?
I don't think so.
Okay. You just have a ton of energy.
I was treated for a mental illness while we were trying to figure out what was wrong with me.
Right. But it's
all of that treatment ceased once I got insulin.
Yeah, because you were looking at all of your personality changes.
Because I was a psych major. And so what did I know?
That's
I
the
knew
path
psychology.
you went down. Yeah.
And so when my brain was not working, I went to my family doctor and said, I think I have bipolar disorder. And she said, you're too kind and too nice to have bipolar disorder. I said, yeah, but like my brain, like I'm not right. And so
and
I
you're
got
not
diagnosed
like,
with bipolar disorder.
wait, you did?
I did. Yeah, I did. I even got myself into a psych ward for a while. And obviously the meds weren't helping. And I didn't improve.
But you don't think you're bipolar? Like, you're not manic
don't
right
think
now.
so,
This
no.
is how you are.
This is how I am. Yeah. I
Wow.
have energy. Yeah. I mean, this is a little nervous energy.
No, I imagine.
And also just, I don't get out. Well, I haven't gotten out much in a while.
Don't get out much.
Not everyone did. Well, when COVID hit, everyone was complaining about being stuck at home. I was like, yeah, welcome to my world. But I do get out more now. We live in a smaller town now, so I can drive a little bit. I don't feed myself nutrients. And so we chased my house for a really long time trying to figure out what's wrong with me. And really, I think it just comes down to the fact that I don't eat food.
Yeah.
I eat simple carbs, and I don't know. I'm on like a teenager diet.
Nico, can I just say, I love you.
So there's one thing
fantastic.
you haven't mentioned in the podcast that I've been wanting to ask you, though.
Okay, go ahead.
So in Arden's lunches in like early high school, she often had pizzelles. And I wondered if you made them or if they were store-bought in New Jersey.
They were store-bought. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I feel like I
No,
let
it's
you down.
okay. I imagine a world where you can buy pizzelles in the grocery store.
Yeah, that exists here. You don't have that where you are?
No, I have to go to my pantry and get the pizzelle maker down off of the top shelf. And I spent the entire month of December looking for anise and couldn't find it anywhere. So anyway, yeah.
Oh, don't tell me that those exist, because there's a world where I'll buy a maker and make them. I don't want that to happen to me.
Oh, I'll send a recipe.
I'm making, Arden got me a Ninja Creamy for Christmas.
Ooh.
And I'm making my own sorbet right now. And it's so good.
Ooh. I went through a sorbet phase.
It's going to be
gelato and sorbet. Yeah, both. I had fun.
Yeah, I haven't done gelato yet in the machine. So far, I made a lemon raspberry sorbet, and I have to tell you, it's fantastic. So,
I believe you. I have not yet tried your pizza crust, but I do see periodically people say, and I'm like, oh, that's here in the group. I'll find it for you.
Yeah, I'm thinking about a pizza this weekend, actually.
Well, it's like Thursday, right? Is it? No, is it Friday?
It's Friday. I'm literally thinking of making a pizza crust when I'm done here with you.
Okay, because I was gonna say you're running late.
Yeah, and then I'll make the pizza on Sunday afternoon, probably.
Okay.
So
there you go.
All right, but okay, so back.
Well, maybe I will too.
Okay.
I have the afternoon off. My mom's working for me.
Why not?
How cute is that?
That's lovely. And she's selling cookies somewhere for you.
Yes.
Are they cookies you made?
No, I could, but honestly, I mean, I do love baking. I don't love cleaning.
Are you buying cookies and then reselling them?
No.
Oh.
I have, so my boss will probably hear this, and she just joined the group yesterday.
Okay.
I don't know who let her in. I don't know who handles the membership requests, but her son was just diagnosed over Christmas.
Oh.
And so anyway, but she started a storefront for her bakery in November, and she hired me to help run the storefront.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And I have now picked up extra shifts because she is now caring for a type 1 diabetic.
I made some sugar cookies the other day. Were fantastic.
Ooh,
and then I sent them to the kids. But you'll hear me talk about that on an episode. It was very depressing. I made them. I love cooking for my family. And I make cookies for the kids throughout the year here and there. And then they're both gone right now. And I made them. And I'm like halfway through making them. And my wife's like, "Are you okay?" And I said, and I responded, I said, "It doesn't feel the same." And I was so upset. And she goes, what doesn't feel the same? Because she's Irish. She doesn't know. You know, and I'm like, and she doesn't know about like feelings and stuff. So I was like,
she seems like a lovely person.
I'm sure she does to other people. No, I'm just kidding. She is. No, but I was like, I'm not getting whatever I get out of baking for the kids. I'm not getting it while they're not here.
I get that.
Yeah.
Our family had COVID over Christmas. Oh, not us. We had COVID right after you had COVID. And I joked with you in the group that you were the only person I knew who had COVID at that time. And so I must have gotten it from you through my headphones. But no, we probably got it at a funeral or at an endo visit. I don't know. But
you didn't get
my family.
You didn't get the French COVID that I had. I had French COVID. So.
Oh, well, how do I know?
Well,
I just did an at-home test. I don't know what kind I had.
You don't have an international airport at your house, do you?
Well, and I mean, we do have a lot of international visitors. Well, and like I said, funerals. So we had a lot of people come from from faraway places. But I don't know if we got French. I have no idea what I got. It wasn't that big of a deal. I did not sound nearly as rough as you sounded, and I am a type 1 diabetic who takes other meds that don't, aren't kind to my immune system. But yeah, it wasn't too bad. But about a month later, the rest of our family got it, and so we didn't get to see them at Christmas, and so it was a very sad, quiet moment, just baking by myself and then delivering the cookies to people. It just wasn't the same. I understand.
Do you know I just did something on purpose that's going to be mean, but I'll say that I derailed you on purpose a minute ago to see if you'd get back to the cookies, and you did. That was fascinating to me.
Sometimes I will. Sometimes I won't.
I pulled you out of the conversation about the cookies and took you towards the COVID to see if you'd get back to the cookies.
I'll get back to the cookies.
And you did.
I love cookies, but I like cake more.
There you go. You're trying to change directions. I'm not going to let you hear.
No, I'm not trying. I mean, there are lots of directions to go. That's what I did have all the nerves. I really did. I had no idea what you wanted. I knew what you wanted. I didn't see how that was an episode. And then after listening to all the episodes, I wasn't really sure what I had left that could be an episode. I don't think I'm really like a
Nico. I do think you help this podcast so much, and you help that Facebook group so much, and people should know that there are other people doing things like that. And you don't you're not paid for it. You're not an employee of it. You have no responsibility towards it. And you take this thing that I made, and it got too big. I can't wield it by myself anymore. Right. It's right. Too much. And you are helping me to reach so many people on Facebook. And in turn, some of those people are making it back to this podcast, which is growing the podcast and allowing the podcast to continue on. And you're helping all those people. Like when someone comes on and says, somebody will put up a post and be like, I got my A1C today and this is what it is. And thank you, Scott, and the podcast in this group. I get most of the glow goes towards me, and that's not fair. It really isn't. That person ended up in that group and found the podcast because of the group. And the group is, you said it earlier, it's its own entity at this point. It lives and breathes on its own. It doesn't even need me. The only thing, Isabel will tell me privately, she's like, they want you. She'll tell me that sometimes. They do. She'll put a post up and she'll be like, no one looked at my post. She puts these amazing posts up. They're so detailed and they are great for people, and no one looks at them. And then I'll go on and say something completely stupid, and an hour and a half later, it's got 10,000 imprints on Facebook, and it's frustrating. You know what I mean?
I love her posts, I know a little bit about how the algorithms work, and so I try to interact with all of her posts, even if I don't always have something incredible to say. I still try to at least interact with them, because those posts, they deserve to be seen by the
They're
people
wonderful.
Who aren't seeing them.
No, everyone should see them. And I feel bad when she puts them up if they don't get any interactions, and yet there are times that the group is so fast I don't even see them sometimes. You know what I mean? That's the one thing about the group. You have to, if you're in the group and you see something valuable, you have to interact with it, because if the algorithm thinks no one cares, it just shoves it away. It
just disappears. Yeah.
And it's gone.
Absolutely.
And so you have to really, and I try you probably see me at the end of the night and early in the morning. I try to interact with as many posts as I can. But the truth is that would be a 48-hour a day job for me if I was going to do that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Then there would be no new content for us to be.
You wouldn't get a podcast then. There'd just be a Facebook group. And so tell me some other things. You said something earlier that I really appreciated coming from your other perspective. You like the way I think about managing the group. So tell me why you think that group is successful.
That group is successful because you let it live and breathe. You have the podcast if people want something. Well, the podcast isn't stagnant because it's evolving. New episodes every week, but the old episodes are there if people want them. And you have a website if you want them to do that. But that group needs to have new blood that can have old conversations over and over again. Mm-hmm. And I already do miss the people that were there a year ago when I joined.
Yeah,
All
me
of the
too.
names of the people that I learned to recognize as the voices of reason and the voices of authority, the people who did know the podcast and who had been with it a while. I do miss a lot of them, and there are a few that I still see. But the newcomers are the reason the group is still relevant. And
Yeah.
letting them keep having those same conversations over and over again, multiple times throughout the same day. And the group would just stall if you didn't allow that to happen. And that was what was happening. It was kind of funny. Admin Assist was deleting things I was posting, and it was quite hilarious. And I finally said, I'm sorry, but I can't help you with your group anymore because the rules have become way too convoluted. Like, this is
In your gardening group.
Yeah, in my gardening group.
Yeah.
And I just said, I got to go find something else to do. And like I said, my podcast that I liked left my app. And so it just all converged at once with me having some free time. And I do still, my energy is still low. I know it doesn't sound that way right now. That's just my anxious energy that's coming out. But I do, with better glycemic control, I do have more energy, but I still don't get the right calories in at the right time. I'm still pretty malnourished. And so we wondered for a long time. I went through all kinds of different diagnoses, and some of them may be accurate, but I'm just not sure that any of that matters. In reality, I'm not as hydrated as I should be, and I'm not as nourished as I could be. And so I don't have a ton of energy. And all of the doctors, the one thing they've always told me is that I need to rest. And so when I do need to rest, I can sit down and answer questions online. I can still feel like I'm giving back. I can still feel like I'm not completely, No,
you very much are. There's no ego about you. Like, that's one thing. One of the reasons when we talked about like maybe giving some people like a group expert badge, I was like, oh God, like one of them's going to lose their mind. And I'm, and we picked you and Stephanie and Krista, and they've been terrific. Like really, really, really terrific. But you specifically, like, I'm not lying. Like, there are times
I joke. She says the same things you say about me. And she and I, we mostly just communicate in the group, but it's the same stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not a witch, and there's nothing special about me. I just listened and remembered.
Yeah,
but that's what I do. I just listen when I'm upright, when I'm washing dishes, when I'm gardening, when I'm baking, when I'm in between customers at work. I listen to the episodes, and then I retain that information to relay to others.
It's a special
and I practice
skill.
it.
Nico, it's a special skill. Like, there are times I think you're standing behind me. I
might be.
Like, how does she know that? Like, Isabel tends to text me as I'm getting in the shower, which, by the way, is something my mom does. And I'm like, do you know I'm getting in the shower right now? I'm like, how do you know to interrupt me? The only 10 minutes for myself I'm going to take today in this shower. And like, how do you know now? We laugh about it. But no, your addition and what you do for it, I can't say enough good about it. Like, you're a good person.
Okay, so you've had practice with this. I know how many episodes now of having practice with people talking to you this way, and this part I was not prepared for, and I have not had practice with this. Aww. So I'll just sit here blushing and at my husband's desk.
Well, here's what I can tell you. I've learned.
You giggle a little bit too.
You just say thank you. That's all you do.
Thank you, Scott.
You're very
welcome. Am so happy to help. It is. I don't know. The least I could do. I didn't have the knowledge a year ago. I couldn't have created the podcast, but I just can't imagine that if someone does want that information, that I could hold it and not let them know where I got it from.
That's where the motivation comes from. See, you feel like I feel. Like, how do I not tell that person this? I saw a post the other day and I didn't have time to respond to it. And that's the feeling as I left it, I was like, oh God, I'm going to let this person down. Like, I know what I could tell them. And to
me, a lot of times I'm thinking, if it doesn't get answered by someone, me, Scott, Isabel, Krista, Stephanie, or many of the other people in the group who have been with you forever and who have listened, it's going to get answered by one of the other newcomers first. And sometimes those just build momentum so quickly. I just feel terrible when that happens.
Yeah, and they can go the wrong. So it's interesting, isn't it? Like, so how do I do when things get out of hand? Do you think I handle them well?
So I'm not in, the admin panel seeing.
Oh, there's nothing to see. I do everything publicly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I did see some stuff the other day that seemed like it was weird, and then when Isabel went to look at it later, it was gone. So anyway, but I think those public floggings, they're perfect. They're exactly,
Is that
it's
is that
transparent.
how you think of them?
No, not at all. But occasionally someone deserves one and gets one, and it's really rare. But I saw someone a couple days ago poking you, and you answered very politely and somewhat succinctly, and then they poked you harder, and you were like, "Yeah, okay, so you're poking the bear now, and I'm going to give you my real answer, and here it is." And I totally deserved, and it totally belongs. And the group tone is better for it. It's rare, and people do behave most of the time. There have been a few people lately that just feel like just acting up, and it just the internet goes in seasons like that.
Oh my God, it so does. Right as Christmas approaches, everybody loses their minds.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's insane.
And I saw that in the other group I probably was there about 6 years, and you just have to just know that that's what season we're in. Like, right. I'm expecting we're going to have static season right around now, it's going to be pods failing, and people don't realize that that's why, as I sit here in a fuzzy blanket because I don't want my heater to run.
I have these conversations where I'll say to Isabel or my wife, if I'm standing talking about it, I'll say, there are like 5 or 6 people. If I just banned them right now, in the short term, the group would be better off. But I don't want to do that. Because I
had that conversation with my husband too. I was telling him about it on the walk a couple of days ago. I said, but if he knows that if he kicks them out, that they lose the opportunity to learn.
Right. And I've seen it
come around. A few months from now exactly. A few months from now, there's one I'm hoping will come back around soon.
Yeah.
About 6 months ago, there was one that I've been watching for her to come back, and I hope she does. So anyway, best we could do is just put the information out there and hope.
Right.
And not ban them all.
It's so interesting to hear you talk about it like that too. Like, that is exactly how I feel, because I've seen somebody, I've gotten an email, like a long, like, you suck email. And then like 6 months later, long, I'm sorry email.
Oh,
like I was in a bad headspace and blah, blah, blah. And now my A1C is this. So what I do is, the way I explain it to my wife, when my wife's like, how do you make these decisions? I'm like, I know what the podcast is and I know what it does. And if somebody disagrees with it at its basic core, I know they're wrong. But other than that, I listen to people's input and I try to think, like, am I wrong about this? Or am I not seeing the whole picture? I'm constantly doing that. But at its core, I know that podcast helps people live healthier. And so if you tell me it doesn't, you have another reason why you're saying that. And I got attacked recently by somebody privately, and then they tried to come at me through the survey as well, where they listened to the podcast intently. And I guess I said something where I was trying to be flippant about ads. And I said something like, you got to click on this link. If you don't, I'm going to end up working at Walmart or something like that. Like, I need you to support the podcast.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And I am you would tell me if you thought differently, but I am completely transparent about what makes money for this podcast. Like the ads, if I put something online, I'm like, look, if you click on this, it supports the show. Like, I'm very, very clear about it. And this person had been a fan for a while, and then all of a sudden they're like, this is about your ego and money. And I'm like, look, what am I going to do? I said to my wife, am I going to argue with her? I'm like, it's not about that. And I can't. It's about helping people. Does the podcast create a revenue stream that supports my family? It absolutely does. And if you want me to feel bad about that, you're barking up the wrong tree, because I spend my whole life making this podcast. So I'm gonna get paid for it, because if I didn't, I couldn't make it. I still have bills. I'd have to go do something else. And so I don't feel badly about that. I know how many people it helps. I know how it's brought the diabetes space forward. I just had a long conversation yesterday with a major institution in diabetes that's going to ask me to come out and speak about something about how I talk to people. They're going to want me to tell clinicians how to talk to people about diabetes. So I know what it's doing. And so you pick through this moment with this person and you're like, well, there's something happening on their end.
It's not about me. Yeah.
This isn't about me. And so I have to let that go. I've become the focus of something. I'm going to let that go. Right. And then I'm like, do I block them? Are they going to just like sow like, because the one thing that people do on Facebook that if you don't know is they DM behind the scenes each other like little kids in school. And not everybody, but some people do. Yeah. And I think it's funny, like, for anybody listening who's ever done that, if you think I don't know, you're kidding yourself, because you're telling somebody you think agrees with you and that person doesn't agree with you, and then they send me screenshots of your conversations. So
it's true.
Don't type anything you don't want someone to know. So
absolutely.
And I've seen it, like, I've seen the gamut run. I've only ever kept one of them because it's so fascinating.
And a lot of it you'll see again.
Please. Everything old is new again in this space.
Again and again.
And you have to be okay with that too. But I have one here I'll never get rid of, where the person tells, like, somebody says, "Hey, I don't understand why you deleted my comment about the Juicebox podcast." That started the conversation. And then that admin lied and said they knew me personally. And
you mentioned this.
And then made up significant lies about me to try to paint the reason why you wouldn't want to go to the podcast. Like, I know he does this and I know he does that. And everything they wrote, I'm like, I don't do that. I'm like, I don't make money that way. I don't do this. I don't do that. She told them that I counsel people privately and take large sums of money from them for it. I've never done that in my life.
Wow.
But it was fascinating.
You could have, but you didn't.
Listen, I just got an email from the Middle East the other day about helping, I think, a fairly wealthy family. And I was like, I don't accept money to help people with diabetes, but I can send you to some episodes. It's like, there's part of me that's like, Scott, just fly to Dubai and help somebody with their basal. What are you doing? And so, but anyway, I don't do those things. And then to have somebody come at me and tell me I do, then you're back into in the internet world. Like, arguing with them is going to do nothing. And
it's so hard, because I would love to participate more in more of those groups. And I was doing an okay job of giving enough of my own comments and then periodically throwing in a podcast episode, knowing that if I did too much of what I do in your group, I would get kicked out of their groups. Yeah. But at some point, it was just exhausting.
No, it's too much. And from
watching them suffer and watching them choose that path. But then really, like, I'm actually just busier now, and I would rather make sure I don't miss any of the Juicebox group posts that need answers, and then go back about my life.
You're wonderful. You're wonderful. If my kids weren't grown, I'd make you their godmother. So,
oh my.
Trust me, you don't want that responsibility either. But and do you think you've heard me talk about it in the past about the other groups? Like, it's all about, like, they want to keep their audience. It's not really. Well,
and you've seen so many of them are doing exactly what you said. They're there to make the money.
Mm-hmm. And they're siloing everybody in. They don't want them to leave.
Yeah, and they want the numbers. And it really isn't. If it were about helping people, then it wouldn't matter what information the people were getting, as long as it was just fair and balanced. You know, like, hey, this information is there. You can get this. And then there's so much to it, I'm sure. And I didn't spend very much time there. I joined a couple of groups. I have no idea. Diabetes did get a little bit harder about a year ago. I think my honeymoon probably ended then. And so I didn't know I was looking, but I was looking a little. And then I realized where I could get help, and I didn't need to be there anymore either. And where do I want to give back the help is where I got the help from, not. But I still do. I go to Reddit and same thing. I answer with my own information enough times that I can then also answer with podcast episodes sometimes, so that I don't look completely crazy and I don't get kicked out.
Yeah.
But I don't have to do that in your group. If there's an episode that will help someone and I don't have the personal knowledge about it, I can just share the episode. And I would rather put a few words with it, but lately I've been a little busier because I'm working more hours than I anticipated, and I am thrilled to be doing it. I would really love to help this family more. I've never had a person in my life who actually had diabetes. And so, I'm not thrilled that he was diagnosed, but I am more than happy to share the information that I have. Right. And so she has looked at my graphs. She was looking at my data the other day. So wait, how do you do that? And I was like, well, it's the podcast. And she was like, we should be playing that nonstop here.
That's lovely.
I have been. Don't you see my headphones?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Listen, I'm obviously thrilled that it's helped you, but you've now helped more. And it's just, I'm the only one.
I won't stop.
I appreciate that very much. I didn't want to have to say it.
I don't plan to.
I did not. I was like, please don't leave me. But
no, I don't plan to. I don't. I am busier, but I don't plan for that to be forever. And I do still have some free time, and I do still have to sit sometimes. And so if I'm sitting, I'll answer people's questions if I can.
Do you appreciate the hands-off way I deal with you and Stephanie and Krista, or do you wish I was more involved? Like you guys have a chat, right? You and Isabel and the girls all have a chat, right?
We do.
Yeah.
And I think I treat my Facebook Messenger like chat section the way you treat your inbox, and but probably less so. Like I really do need to set aside one day a month and go answer messages over there. But I let's see, we don't write to each other very frequently. And I do appreciate it now. When I first became an admin in another group, I had assumed all along, not having ever been one, that where there were multiple people on a team, they were all communicating behind the scenes, like you said.
Yeah.
And then I learned that we weren't. Once I was doing it myself, I realized that we were just all in our own little space doing our own thing. And the only time we wrote to each other is if we felt like complaining about someone or, whatever, having one of those private conversations, or just really just felt like having a private conversation.
Oh God,
it
had never occurred to
gardening.
me. It never occurred to me. Do you complain about me?
No. I'm just assuming people probably think that we actually do all interact, and we don't. Unless there's something that needs to be done. And if there's nothing that needs to be done,
isn't it neat how everybody's personality
members would probably, I think the group members would appreciate knowing that we're still being our own individuals, that we weren't giving any marching orders. We're just people that you trust to help relay your information.
Yeah.
And people with experience, people, with knowledge, and that we're not being told by you what you want us to do. We're
at
just
all.
We're just helping.
I'm as hands off with you guys as I am with the whole thing. Like, did you see the note the other day that somebody sent me, and they were like, you need to moderate this group differently?
Yeah, I saw that. And I thought, no, he doesn't.
I was like, oh, that's the wrong tree times 10 to bark up with me. I'd prefer to moderate the group less. I really liked the group better when it had one rule, and the rule was don't be a dick or I'll shut this whole thing down.
And that was basically how the other group that I was in was. It was like, we just talk about gardening stuff. That's fine. Just, don't make it political. Don't be a jerk about it. And we'll just all hang out. And then one day it was like, way more specific. And if you ever told us, well, I see it both directions. I do sometimes want to share something from a different source, like integrated diabetes, especially, or somewhere else where I maybe learned something. But I definitely would rather share a podcast episode in the podcast group if there is one that applies, because you gave them to us. You gave them to us, and so why would we not give them back to one another?
Right. It's funny because I go back and forth with that. Because there are times that like somebody will be like, hey, I want to know about basal testing. And somebody will like, we'll use this link. And I'm like, that's not the link for the basal testing in the podcast. That's the link for basal testing somewhere else, which I don't care about. If it helps other people, that's the thing I had to get over.
Yeah,
if it helps other people, then it's good. But it does make you worry on a micro level. Did you just drive someone out of the podcast who now won't make their way back to it? And it's easy to think that, well, there are 33,000 people in there. They all listen to the podcast, but that's not the truth. If everyone in that Facebook group started listening to this podcast today, this would be the biggest podcast ever. Like it would be not just in the diabetes
and it's amazing
space,
how many podcast listeners there are that aren't in the group, and how many group members there are that have no idea that there's a podcast,
and vice versa, and don't care.
It's both ways.
Yeah, both ways.
I do have. There's a few times though that there are people that are just like, no, I don't listen, and I have my 8.7 A1C, and I don't listen, and these are the problems that I have. But I've been a member of this group a long time, and I don't listen, and I still wonder, like, why not?
Isabel,
I just can't imagine.
Shares that with me too. She's like, why don't they just listen if they see everybody else like
succeeding?
Yeah, succeed. Like, why would you?
Well, I mean, because they have Jimmy diabetes, I guess. But I mean, even I have Jimmy diabetes. I have gastroparesis, and I'm still going to be bold. I mean, not every single time, because occasionally I'm not digesting that well, and I just have to read my body. And I have hormones that are doing like absolutely ridiculous things to me. Some nights I use 2 units of insulin overnight, and sometimes I use 6 units of insulin overnight. And it's just, I have no idea when that's going to happen. And you know what? I'm not going to give up on tight control.
You just referenced a podcast episode from 2018.
Yeah, it's one of the best.
Is it really?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I put it on the list the other day when you asked. And now you guys are asking me again, both in the group and Isabel asked privately. And Jimmy Diabetes is definitely one people should listen to.
I'm going to have to listen to it.
A couple of days ago, you guys were talking about the B word. You talked about that probably 8 months ago, but you aired it a couple of days ago. And so you reheard it a couple of days ago, probably. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what they're saying. I mean, to me, that's what Jimmy Diabetes is about. It's about people thinking that their diabetes is more difficult than other people's diabetes. And for some of us, it is. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't digest food predictably. So getting my prediction curve to match what my insulin is going to do is not easy. Yeah. And that doesn't mean that I have to have a really high A1C. I do have more variability than I'd like, because I am going to sometimes get swings, and I'm just going to keep trying. I'm going to reach out, and if there's an episode that maybe when I listened to it the first time, I wasn't in the place I am now, mm-hmm. I'll just go listen again. But I have a couple of people in the group who are going to help me. My Loop and I are not entirely friends yet, so that's kind of funny. But I do have a new toy, and I'm really excited about it. So I live at Elevation. We talked about that a tiny bit. And you've had some Elevation episodes. So I am not Jenny. I am your other people. I don't use very much insulin, but I've always lived at Elevation. So that's all I know.
Right.
And so I finally got my doctor to let me try Afrezza. I'm the first patient she's ever prescribed it to. And it wasn't easy, but I'm really excited about it. The only problem is it comes in 4-unit cartridges. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times I don't use 4 units for anything. But it comes to be, you get to practice with your own diabetes and figure out how that 4 units works. And for me, it's really close to 3 units of Novolog, but faster. Okay. And so it's fun. But I can't use it for a meal that has meat in it, because a lot of my meal bolus does include my fat and protein, and that's going to be gone by the time the fat and protein are there. So I can use it for, like yesterday I missed on my mom's birthday cake. And so the Afrezza fixed that problem real fast. It was awesome. I'm in love.
Oh, that's excellent. I do want to, it's tough because I want to talk to more people who use it, but A, not many people use it. And B, the people who use it are sometimes evangelical about it. And
so that's why I thought I would at least mention that I am using it in addition to Loop, because it's kind of cool, and it doesn't have to be completely terrifying. Right. But I definitely couldn't manage strictly with that. It's just not going to be precise enough. Mm-hmm. I don't really know how people do that, honestly. And they do, but I kind of feel like I'm going back to whole unit pens again and mm-hmm. having a magic marker when I really want a pencil.
I want so badly to, I don't think Arden would try it, but if she would, to me, it feels like for sticky highs.
Exactly.
It'd be perfect.
Like a pump site failure.
Yeah.
Get that thing right back down.
Right.
Or a sticky high, or don't have a lot of time to pre-bolus, but don't really want to deal with an over-bolus. But I know I can use Loop to deal with the pizza part of this meal, but I want a fun drink with this meal that's going to hit me a lot faster. Let's just don't even tell the Loop about the drink. Just tell the Loop about the pizza, and the Afrezza will take care of that first, quick impact.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah, there's got to be. I definitely want to hear more about it. It can't be from somebody who's you know what I mean? They're proselytizing. Yeah. I'm because they get online sometimes and they're just so it's the closest thing to a low carb conversation that I've ever seen. This is the way. I really couldn't
use it exclusively. There's no way.
Right.
I mean, maybe people with higher insulin needs, but really I rely on the 0.05 bumps and nudges, mm-hmm. and yeah, you can't do that though. Anyway,
what's your opinion on how I handle the low carb thing online?
Oh.
Do you think about
online?
it? Yeah. Do you think about how, look, there are.
I guess I can't imagine you handling it any other way.
That is what I do. I do the same exact thing with it, but it's tough because they try some very few, but some low carb proponents are very much you're doing this wrong and you should be doing this.
But they haven't listened to all of the episodes if they're saying that.
Yeah, probably. But I don't want them not to be there. And so I'm Isabel's
There's one that's been missing a little bit lately, and I've been sad about that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, she's got good
And
energy.
I was low carb. I did low carb. I had to, and I would do it again. It is easier. I just can't digest that food, so I don't anymore.
Yeah, no, it's interesting that you don't see, so you just see any like waves that are handled as being handled all the same. Because I feel that way, but it's tough because
people take it personally if it's their wave.
Yeah, that's true. It's hard.
But I'm not making very many waves, and so I'm not taking it personally. So I'm just seeing it as an outsider saying, yeah, you're allowed to talk that way as long as you're not being nasty about it. Yeah. Then you can bring this up. And if you're being too much of a, if you're being a jerk about it, then he's going to ask you to stop. And otherwise, feel free. It worked for you.
Yeah, it does work. And I find it I'm super interested by watching people online because
I know
if you can step out of the argument, you're like, oh, well, they're upset about this, or they're trying to make a point about this, or sometimes they're trying to sell something and they're trying not to act like they are. And then they'll kind of push back harder. I had that recently with somebody from a company who was like, I'm just trying to be part of the group. I'm like, that's not what you're doing.
No.
Yeah, you're trying to drive something to a thing you make money with. And that is something I feel very strongly about too. Like, I've collected all these people together. They're not fish in a barrel. You don't just get to market to them. I get to market. I get to tell them about my ads, because if the ads don't get supported, you have no idea the pressure it is to have advertisers and they're not mean about it.
And that's why I don't bake for our bakery.
Yeah.
It's the cleaning, company level cleaning every day for the baking. I'm not going to do that. No,
I can't. You have no idea. You've spoken.
So I have no responsibility. I just share the information, and you have all that pressure behind the scenes.
Nico, you're perfect. I'll just keep eating up the pressure, and you keep doing what you're doing. Can I ask you? Go ahead.
If you want to have a conversation with my husband, I'll have a conversation with your wife, because he definitely doesn't think I'm perfect.
Well, you are for me. So,
and he's been really helpful. It's really cute to see him. He doesn't have diabetes and he is not on Facebook, but he's really excited to contribute a little here and there.
Well, we're
still kind of looking.
He made that shortcut, right?
He did make the shortcut.
Yeah. So you share that,
that's him.
It's like a fat calculator.
And he's working on another one right now that will do it in Excel for people who don't have iPhones.
No kidding. I haven't added your shortcut, and I want to, and I have to admit, I'm so inept at it, I don't even know how to do it.
Yeah. So, and I wish we knew how, but that's one thing. Web design is not something we do.
For you, yeah.
So,
well, it's still I see a lot of people get a lot of great use out of it. And
and it's been hilarious to see it evolve. It's really funny. There's been some funny uses of it. It was being used for brain poop as a meal the other day.
I've considered having a developer make a podcast app that also has bolus calculators in it and everything you would need for diabetes all in one place along with the podcast. But I know the problem is it's so hard to get people to adopt things that I know in my heart it would fail at the end. So I don't put too much effort into it. But that's also, by the way, that's also an important skill to have if you're in this, which is to know when to point your energy, when to go. That's a great idea, but it doesn't matter what a good idea is if people aren't going to adopt it. And
experience has helped you with that a little bit, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, I know.
Unfortunately,
I've had a couple of good ideas that aren't actually good ideas.
But
because they would be if you could
depends on how you define good idea.
Well, I define everything by mass appeal.
Yeah.
Right. By helping, if it helps.
Sustainability.
Yes. If it helps, good. But then it has to be sustainable and it has to reach a lot of people, because I can't. Well, I don't mean to say that helping 5 people is not important, but to what you said earlier, if it's going to help those people, it'll help more people, and then we need to get it to them. And if I can't
helping people,
if I can't figure a way to deliver it to them, then it's not a good idea.
And not every one of them is going to go sharing it once they've benefited from it. Like you said, most of them move on.
Yeah.
I'm not like that. I just can't do that. I can't walk away from something that has given so much to me.
Well, I think that's perfect about you, and I am not going to change you about that at all. You're one of the people I don't want to go anywhere.
As long as you keep us being just perfectly moderated, I'll stick around. And when it gets to the point that I can't share a podcast episode without it getting deleted, I'll
that
be
wouldn't
gone.
happen at mine.
I know, but that's what was so weird about it. It was, so anyway.
What? Oh, but when you tried to do it in other groups, they wouldn't let you do it.
In my gardening group that I was an admin of.
Yeah.
There were comments that were perfectly in line with the conversation we were supposed to be having, and random keywords would trigger because
the moderator didn't want to actually moderate. That's what happens when they give into pressure from other people. When people are like, you shouldn't let people talk like that. I'm like, you're going to be the one to leave if that's how you feel about this. Because to be clear, those people are adults. They can do whatever they want. I'm not in charge of them. I don't care. The only thing you're going to hear from me on is if you're doing something that's hurting the group, then you're going to hear from me. If you're doing something that's leading someone down a dangerous path, you're going to hear from me about that. If you're being mean to people, if you're food shaming people, if you're insinuating that if you eat carbs, you're going to die, like things like that, that stuff's not going to fly. And I'll put a stop to that very quickly. But the rest of it,
I just feel like it's very balanced. I feel as though you would also protect a low carb post as much as you would protect a high carb post, because I mean, if anyone has any questions about that, there's a whole series where you gave everyone a forum to talk about how they eat.
Yeah, no, I know.
The people who are, they just looking for something to be upset about,
or there's something going on.
Or expecting that you're moderating the way that other groups are moderating and not really paying attention that that's not what you're doing at all.
Right. Now, I appreciate
sometimes I think sometimes you just have to look at all the different ways. I didn't find that reference, but once you mentioned, I think, did you say that you have to pretend like the person in the car like has a really urgent bathroom need? I think that's what you said, that's like the benefit of the doubt you give the driver that's being a jerk.
Yeah.
I tell my husband you have to pretend like they have eggs or whatever, but I just have to sometimes look and say, what is this really about? Because this isn't about Scott. This isn't about this particular post. This is something else.
Right. I let everything go until it becomes obvious that you have like sinister motivations.
Yeah.
And then we're done. And that you're not going to get me past. I had somebody like,
and then you're done.
Yeah. Oh, then you're real done. Like
it's done. Yeah.
I had to, and by the way, that's a college commencement address from a famous author who's passed away.
Oh, okay. So there's an episode for that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's called This Is Water.
Uh-huh.
But in that he describes that, you can see someone speeding down the road and weaving in and out of traffic and choose to think that they're an asshole, or you could choose to think that, they have a really good reason for doing this. And that you're never really going to know why, but it's better for you if you choose to believe that they have a good reason. Because I do that in the moderation of it. But at the end, when people are being absolutely like obviously pimping a business or something, like that, I'm not okay with. Like when like everyone there are people who use some version of, here's a picture of a t-shirt. I just got this t-shirt for my type 1. Isn't it great?
Oh, I see it all the time.
Yeah, and then three statements down, someone goes, "Oh my God, it's so cute. Where'd you get it?" And they're working together to get out their Etsy link or something like that. Like I'm like, all right, we're not doing this, but people do that with low carb websites too. They infer something to get someone to ask a question, and then once they ask a question, they go, "Oh, it's because I don't eat carbohydrates that I'm so healthy," and then they're pushing. That's proselytizing. That's not okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so I stopped a person from doing that the other day, and they're like, I didn't know I was doing that. And I said privately to Jenny, I was talking to Jenny about it. And I said, like, I don't care if they know they're doing it or they don't know they're doing it. It's still happening. It's unimportant to me whether they're sinister or they're just silly. Like it's what's happening. You know what I mean? And then I have one other question about a Facebook thing for you. The young girl that comes in and drops a horror bomb and then doesn't respond while everybody runs around trying to save her life.
Yeah.
I banned that account.
The uncle has the same name as you.
Seriously? Yes.
First name.
Yes.
Yes.
I banned that account.
Oh, okay.
It hurt me to do it. But
you tried. I saw you try.
I tried. Well, I sent a private email. And I said, I don't know you. You don't know me. I'm not a doctor, but I will do anything to try to help you. And, but you can't just keep coming into the group, saying something horrifying and then ghosting the thread. Like it's not okay. And so,
and I'm sure a lot of people will be happy to know what happened there.
yeah.
So.
And I just finally, so I tried to have a back and forth, and then they were like, everyone says they want to help me. And I was like, well, I'm actually trying to help you. So just respond to this and then they wouldn't respond.
And there are so many people who would have jumped at the offer that you gave, so.
Yeah. And they wouldn't respond.
So if it's not the right moment, then it's not the right moment.
Yeah. I said, okay, I did my best here, because this was an extreme case, but I couldn't let that keep happening.
And there was a misconception in the group and all over Facebook that person was a minor. And that person is not a minor.
They're not a minor.
So
no, I know.
that does make a difference.
Yeah.
And those people know that this person is an adult. And like you said, that's who you're catering to, adults who have the right to choose.
After about 20 people got
involved, that choice was made.
And did really helpful things, like down to like contacting
sending
local
food.
authorities,
I will come get you.
Sending food, offering to help them. I was like, they're not taking any of this help. So this is just either self-flagellation or it's all bullshit. One or the other.
Well, and in the beginning, it was like, okay, is this person now hospitalized? And we'll hear back in a few days. And at some point, because I did periodically go check the page and see, did that person come back and update any of those threads or reply to any of those offers? And nothing. Yeah. Just always, like you said, ghosting all of us. Yeah. So
there's something wrong with it. And in the end, you just can't, you can't keep running into the room and farting and running out again before I'm going to lock the door. And it basically, it started feeling like that.
Yeah.
So. Anyway,
so now the door is locked.
That one, I don't ban people easily, and that one really it bothered me when I pushed the button. I was like, oh, I hope I'm doing the right thing here,
I know.
But anyway,
yeah. Well, you couldn't really do much more. I don't think. You tried.
It was a significantly, to one side situation. It was off the charts. So,
and it was exactly like you said. I mean, you offered, everyone offered. So,
yeah.
I mean, if you had just banned the person without actually trying to help, then maybe we could question the decision. But there's no question that you tried.
You have to have the bigger picture in mind too. Like that group is there to capture people, give them hope, and lead them in the right direction. And if I always think about like, what if this is someone's first post, like that they see.
Yeah, the first thing they see.
I tried.
Or the only one they see today because they only go to their group feed and not to the actual group itself.
Right. Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah.
You have to go into the group. But anyway.
Get the impression. But wait, you tried to derail me here. So anyone who wants to actually hear you talk about This Is Water, you talk about it in Swimming Skittles, which is number 451. So
that was amazing. Thank you. I loved watching it happen in real time.
I had to hold on to it because we had to go to another really serious topic, but yeah, people should hear that episode. And
how could we have it so you walk behind me and when I say something, you go, what Scott's referring to is?
Oh my gosh! So that's like so I can do a little pop culture reference. There was that little short-lived TV show with Ted Danson. He had a little computer, a little robot. Oh, well, not a robot. Well, she was a robot, right? The Good Life.
Wait, yeah.
With Kristen Bell.
Yeah, K-Bell.
Yeah,
it's Good Place. It's called The Good Place.
The Good Place. Yeah. Yes.
I love that show. It was short. It was only 4 seasons, but it did very well to like wrap itself up in 4 seasons.
Yeah, I could be the little robot.
I there's part of me that thinks Kristen Bell's not a real person, by the way.
You want to think that.
She seems so delightful. I'm like, that can't be real.
Oh, but she seems so very real. Yeah.
But that's what I need. I need you to pop out of like thin air and just go, hey, Scott.
Exactly.
Then say the thing. Can we make that happen?
Trying.
Well, I'll tell you what, artificial intelligence is leaping right now. So we may get to the point soon where you can go to your AI generator and just say, like literally type, like, what's that episode of the Juicebox podcast where, and it'll come. Have you seen it? It's fascinating.
You're making me obsolete.
No, I'm not making you obsolete. I'd still have to type it. So we can't do that. I need you. But okay. So my last question, I'm going to let you go.
Okay.
Was it inappropriate that I sent everyone a Christmas present this year, or was that okay?
Well, I appreciated it.
I was so worried.
But it's still, I mean, I would send chocolate, I promise.
No. I don't mean that. Like I wanted to send something that you could just use. And I think obviously.
And I am. My compression low solution, I really appreciate it. So yeah, I now have a nice foam mattress topper. So you bought a chair, I bought a foam mattress topper, and it has greatly improved our sleep. Not because we really needed a more comfy bed, but oh my gosh, Dexcom and I just aren't great friends. And so I deeply appreciative. You have no idea. Yeah. But there are no words. I think I sent some words.
You said a lovely
my
note.
Most honest words I could send.
No, a lovely note.
I said, honey, I don't know what to do. Like this is what I want to say. And he said, well, yeah, I think that's probably what you should say then. And so, yeah, like overwhelmed. And honestly, I have to sit sometimes. And so when I said I still want to be contributing.
Oh, well, you're very nice. I just, so I sent a gift card. But I labored over not too much, not too little. Too little is insulting. Too much is insulting. It's also a number I can't afford. Like, I would, you know what I mean?
I think you were headed towards too much. Farther away than from too little. But you know.
Well, I didn't think it was too little. It back. Don't get me wrong. I didn't think it was too little.
You were far from too little, but I live in the middle of nowhere. So. Oh
no! I just do you know what I mean by that though? Like if you
I do know, yeah. And gifting is difficult, and I always choose to actually buy a gift because that world of gift cards, I don't know how to navigate it. I mean, I know how to spend them.
Days.
I did, so I appreciate it.
Days talking to my wife, texting Isabel, is this too much? Is this too, I don't want to insult anybody. I also don't want it to be uncomfortable. Like you don't want to send an amount of money where you go, God, I can't accept this.
Well, I can't speak for the others. So you were comfortable. Deeply grateful.
Okay.
So yeah, it really brightened our holidays.
Oh, good. I'm
in
glad.
A way you can, I really hope that my reply would convey that because we were shocked and we were ecstatic and we were really grateful.
Yeah, no, I'm thrilled and I'm glad and you deserve that and way more. I just, wanted to be sure that it wasn't.
I got what I got. You paid us in advance. You gave us the podcast.
Oh, you're very nice.
So yeah, I have better health now. I have lower variability. I have better time and range. I had no idea these things were possible. Mm-hmm. And so why would I not want that for anyone else who has any interest in having it?
Right. Well, I'll tell you, I'm going to do my best to keep it going. I think I'm doing all right so far.
I like the direction you're headed. I made a few posts recently just kind of in that same vein. Just in general, but we're working on my husband's glycemic control now. The same path I was on early, the type 2 path. He's not diabetic, but he's obviously not managing a CGM as well. His line does not look like yours looks like. I missed it, obviously, but I've heard how hard you had to work to get numbers that weren't right. And so I do appreciate it. And I do have a lot of type 2 people in my life. And I love sharing those episodes with them. So I'm really excited that you're...
there's going to be more. Jenny and I are going to put together a whole series of type 2 stuff.
I had a few ideas that, I do need to send you. And you had told me to email you.
Put them in. I want to know. I
want to know
everybody.
You told me to email you one word. And I was like, one word's not enough for an email. So I have a few more words now that I can add to that email. And so I'll send an email now.
Well, I appreciate it. We're going to get it done this year. And I'm gonna put it in with the podcast, and I'm also if the series turns out the way I hope, I might launch a second podcast for type 2, and it won't be updated very frequently, but it'll just be a way where the information sits out there in its own place. I don't know how valuable that is.
I feel terrible that it's intimidating to come to the type 1 world as a type 2. It's sad to me that we have that division, and I see why it's there, but I get really, really touched when, I guess maybe just because I was there and I would much rather be on insulin than be on that other path. And those conversations have really, really enriched the podcast already. So
I think so too. I agree. Well, and I'm not going to let like one or two people are like, they have type 2, don't let them in here. I'm like, but you don't understand. Like if you use insulin, you belong, and that's it. So,
and I don't know how many people don't realize that maybe insulin would improve their outcomes. it's seen as such a scary place to go.
Yeah.
It's seen as like, defeat, like the insulin is the last line of defense, and I feel terrible for those people who don't get on it sooner. I have no idea. I wasn't on a CGM until a few years after I was on insulin, so I don't know what my variability was, but I know I didn't go low very often because I just didn't have a tool that could get me lower safely, and so they just told me not to use the tool, basically.
Yeah. No,
but I do know that I did have complications before I had insulin. And
like what?
I think my best chance at not having them in the future is using the insulin wisely.
Yeah. No, I agree with that.
Thank you.
Well, no, it's my pleasure. I'm thrilled you found the podcast, obviously for yourself, but for everyone else too. Like, I know I joke and I was like, it helps me. You're helping everybody. And it frees me up to make the show. So I'm
willing to try.
No, I
am willing to try.
There's nothing you need to change. You're fine. 100%.
Well, that one conversation, like I'll regret that we couldn't succeed until I hopefully hear that maybe we did, even at that, so that's why. And I know you have that same thing in you, that you said it while you were describing the story. And so I still feel like I'm trying because I can't help everyone, but I can try. So
that's all you got to do. And that's what we're doing. So, okay.
Yeah, you gave me the tool. So I'll just keep using it best I can.
You're delightful.
As long as I can.
You are so delightful. Thank you, Nico. I appreciate it.
I got it delightful. Look at me.
I also know you didn't want to do this, so thank you very much.
I didn't not want to. I just didn't really know. So
you worried about the wrong thing. You did what everybody else did. You thought, well, I'm not going to make a good podcast episode.
Well, no. Well, I mean, I worried about everything because I do. Like, I really, really do. I am a nervous chihuahua, and I was just kind of wondering, like, which piece of this did he want to talk about? And was it really the boring piece of like, I can press Control F, or was it,
I can press Control F. That is a minimization of what you do, and you shouldn't do that.
Well, and it's funny because I was talking to my husband about that last night, and I said, honey, like, I don't know. I think he really just wants to talk. Like, I'm thinking about all of these different pieces of my story, and which one do we want the world to know? Which one do we want to fit in an hour, which we didn't accomplish at all. But then I told him, I said, I think it's really just that he wants to know how I'm helpful in the group. And I said, that's not an episode. And he said, yeah, because all you do is just press Control F. So it's funny. Yeah, you should talk to him. Let him know.
That's funny. Yeah, you can tell him it doesn't matter to me. As far as I'm concerned, you're a Nobel laureate. So I have my moments. Well, you fit perfectly into the need that you're handling. I mean, honestly,
I am happy to help.
No, you couldn't be.
Stop really happy. And I get a little bit sad when I'm at work all day.
Nico, listen to me for a second. You couldn't be more perfect for this. I wish there were 10 of you.
Oh, well, I mean, I talk enough for at least a couple of me.
The online stuff. I wish if there were 10 of you,
I know.
I'd start a moderating business, and we'd fix countless Facebook pages.
Wouldn't we?
I'll tell you. Yeah, I would.
Or leave countless Facebook pages. I don't know.
Yeah. By the way, it's so easy. All you have to do is, it's a little bit parenting. It's a little bit, you have to have like no ego about it. You can't think anything is about you, and you have to believe that everybody is intrinsically good. They're either having a bad day or a bad reaction. But that my son said to me something the other day. He goes, generally speaking, everybody has good intentions. And I'm like, yes,
true.
It's 100% right. And so
everybody just wants to be happy all the time.
Yeah. When people want to fight, that's when I'm like, no. Like, or sometimes I just let them fight.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, whatever.
They'll wear themselves out eventually.
Let them go. It's hilarious. That's the other thing too. When I like when people think they're being deep and they don't realize that everyone else looking is like, oh God, you're such an idiot. That's my favorite part. That's the part that gives me the biggest smile. Like, everybody thinks they're being like they're a great orator, and everyone else is like, is this person okay? And I'm like, nah. I also think, by the way, if you're running a Facebook group, here's another tip. Don't undervalue that people drunk write on Facebook in the evenings.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And that you have to work around that a little bit.
And in the mornings.
Yes. And don't also, like, there is some mental illness in the world too, where you have to give people some grace because they're doing the best they can and they're not coming off the way they mean to. And
some people are just not that skilled with a keyboard.
Oh, just bad communicators. There are so many times I want to be just like, you people, if you were just slightly better at communicating with each other, this would have gone so much better.
We wouldn't be having this conversation because that's not what that was about. And that's not what that reply meant either.
Yeah, like, no, 100%.
You guys are not having the same conversation.
Yeah. Or you're both, or they're both saying the same thing differently. And I'm like, how do you not see that you're both saying the same thing?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like,
it's a great social experiment. It really is.
Great.
Not great. It's interesting.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah. All right, Nico. I hope you have a great day. Hold on a second for me, okay?
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. I'd like to take a moment to thank the Contour NEXTGEN blood glucose meter and the entire line of Contour meters for sponsoring this episode of the Juicebox Podcast. ContourNext.com/juicebox. Head over there now, please. Hit the buy now button if you want to just pick something up online. Super easy. I guess while I'm at it, let me thank the doctors at the emergency room my mom went to, and you, of course, for listening to this episode of the Juicebox Podcast. I can't thank Nico enough and the other people who help her, Stephanie, Krista, and Isabel. They truly hold the Facebook group together and help it to be a more direct and valuable tool for people who listen to the podcast. That group, of course, is called Juicebox Podcast, Type 1 Diabetes. It is a private group with nearly 40,000 members. It's for people with Type 1, Type 2, LADA, any kind of diabetes. You got a diabetes, you're welcome in my group. Links in the show notes, links at juiceboxpodcast.com. Please support the sponsors. Of course, tell somebody you know about the show. And if you're listening in an audio app, please follow or subscribe.